Well, hello, welcome.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm really good.
So, your name is Mary Jane. We know that. And so, here's our first clue: money launderer. It sounds like a gangster story. Number two, Fitzgerald's version of Caddy Compson. And then number three, exit pursued by a bear, which is a famous stage direction from Shakespeare's Winter Tale, I think it is. So, if anybody out there would like to guess where we might be beaming into, I personally am absolutely stumped. So I'm going to ask Mary Jane to introduce herself and tell us where we're at.
Hi, I'm Mary Jane Leving, and I'm here on the shore of Matoscabi Day, otherwise known as White Bear Lake, Minnesota.
Wonderful. That's a very important location. Fitzgerald spent a lot of time as a young adult there, and also spent a big chunk of 1922 there working. And there's a couple stories that he actually references white bear to, but he called it black bear. The most famous of them is Winter Dreams. So, and Mary Jane, you helped organize a fabulous day back about 4 years ago where we got to spend on the lake and really get introduced to the history of that particular area. Let me ask you this. When you first moved to White Bear Lake, did you know any of the Fitzgerald history there?
You know, that's a great question. I knew the Fitzgerald history in St. Paul. I grew up not far from his haunts, a little bit west of there in St. Paul, and my dad had a Model T Ford. So, kind of Fitzgerald tours and just different tours of the history of St. Paul. Also, gangsters that you mentioned, which are very part and parcel of St. Paul's history. So I was aware of that, but it wasn't until I came to White Bear in my 20s and started to live out here that I was interested. I always think that when you know something about where you are, then you can enjoy that community more fully. And that's really what our being able to host the Fitzgerald conference for the White Bear Lake Day really meant to the community. Any reason for a party has always been, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, if it's entertaining on White Bear. So,
Tell
yes.
us a little bit historically about White Bear Lake and what it represents, and in particular, what it would have represented when Fitzgerald was growing up and then when he went back there in 1922.
So White Bear Lake is a suburban lake that was on the streetcar line and also on the railroad. So it was a kind of a resort community for St. Paul for many years, going back to actually the 1850s, which is very old here. People would come up from the south to escape the various epidemics and come to take the health-giving waters of White Bear. So White Bear is a storied place in many ways, and Fitzgerald expanded on that and has become a part of that legend. But it really is built on a number of stories long term. Mark Twain wrote about White Bear Lake in Life on the Mississippi. And you know, early guidebooks that you could use to get your little red guidebook. I have a copy of it, Appleton's guidebook with all the maps in it, and that has the White Bear Lake story. So that was sort of the origin of a legend of White Bear. But the Dakota actually named the lake, so we know that it was called Mato Bay, which is now Manamidi is part of the lake over here. And that's one of four different communities that ring White Bear Lake in two counties. So it's a sizable lake.
Okay, great, great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, Fitzgerald then, he would come out here in the summer and he would visit his aunt, McQuillan, had a house in Bald Eagle, which is another lake not too, just a little ways away. And he would visit there. He visited also Cecil Reed, um, or Cecil, I don't know how you say that, but Reed at his home in Delwood. And then I think most importantly, was White Bear Lake was the scene of one of his really grand successes, which was the play that he wrote and produced and organized just as he went off to Princeton, which was given at the White Bear Yacht Club. So I always think of him living there then with from 1922. And they came to White Bear Lake about the time, there's a notice in the local paper, Ripples Around the Lake, it's called, and it says Mr. and Mrs. F. Scott Fitzgerald have moved to the yacht club. So that's just before the solstice. So we know that they kind of inhabited the White Bear Yacht Club within that same parameter that the framework of the Great Gatsby exists in.
And in fact, when we were on the boat and you were taking us around, you pointed out that your neighbor has a marvelous, very beautiful boathouse and that it could possibly have some connection to Gatsby.
So the boathouse, which is phenomenal, was built in 1915, and it's a real landmark on the lake. And you can see it directly across over my shoulder here is where the yacht club was in the distance. So there's a red and a green light there that's always been a red and a green light. And I didn't even know it. I lived here for years and was already deep into the Fitzgerald interest. And I think the people found the switch. The switch was up in the house, and suddenly one 4th of July, the light came on. I was like, wow, that's something else. So I think that's part of the charm of White Bear, is that there are things, time moves slowly here.
That's great. That's great. Now, I know that you were recently working with a guy from Golfer's Journal who was doing an article on winter dreams, which is, I think we're so used to thinking of that story and its connection to the Great Gatsby that we forget that it's a sports story. I'm wondering there, in terms of the golf course and the golf lore, does that story resonate with golfers?
Well, I think that scene in Winter Dreams, when he's skiing across the golf course in winter, is very present for, and I'm not a golfer, but the idea of going out with the colored balls really early. There's that golf course was designed by a famous golf architect, which a local historian has done quite a bit. And he spoke at he was one of the featured people at the yacht club there too. When I first got out here, there were still the elders who were part of Fitzgerald's generation that would have known him.
Okay.
So that was in the 80s. There's a whole community that kind of brings it out here in some way. And that's, we're glad he spent some time here. It's made it even more interesting.
It adds so much to the I think the color of his Minnesota stories to have that lake environment. And of course, there's a lot of sociology there, because that story is in many ways about class differences between the caddies and the kind of the club members. I know you're very active in the White Bear Historical Society. Can you give us an idea of what is important in terms of preserving the history to that community there?
I think participation with a national conference like that really energizes. And then when people can enjoy it so much, and here's a little story. I think it's okay. Something was left behind, and they were so diligent in trying to find out whose it was. And I was like, I don't know, it's a million details. But they needed to get it back. And it turned out to be, I don't remember, one of Fitzgerald's granddaughter.
Okay.
It was, they were thrilled to get it back. So I thought, that's kind of a fun detail, that's a story that gets told here in White Bear. So I wanted to just give a plug too for the other very, very fine Fitzgerald White Bear Lake story. I think my favorite, actually, which is he thinks he's wonderful.
Yes. In fact, we're getting ready to do that for our Fitzgerald podcast. So
I love this story. I find it so interesting. And there's so much White Bear sociology in that too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I guess, kind of the lake life and coming out to White Bear and getting dropped off at the Wildwood Amusement Park. And so that one is really, if you're a White Bearophile, then I highly recommend He Thinks He's Wonderful.
All right, so we're going to end just real quick with a couple pictures that Mary Jane is emailing us of how beautiful White Bear Lake is. And if you're ever in that area, we recommend you just go take a day out there. Now, you do have a local historical society that is open to the public. Am I correct?
Yeah, White Bear Lake Area Historical Society. They've got great resources, really knowledgeable. Yeah, it's great. And there's a boating tour of White Bear Lake that they have too, and you can get that. But yeah, and Facebook page and all of that too. So if you're interested in White Bear Lake history, I highly recommend the White Bear Lake Area Historical Society social media stuff. It's really kind of fun.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mary Jane, and hope to see you at another conference here soon.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you.